know, it's been too long. We're on chapter 3 of Becoming Sister Wives in the matrimony section, which means it's going to be all about Christine and Cody. I'm very behind on doing this. I'm trying to pick it up this week. I'm also trying to get through Welcome to Plathville so we can watch the last 2 episodes. It's just a lot, and I'm trying to enjoy my weekend. So let's get into chapter 3 from the point of view of Christine and Cody. Christine. I was raised in a polygamous family just outside of Salt Lake. My grandfather was the head of our church, which means my family has been closely involved with all aspects of our faith since I can remember. You could say that when it comes to our church, I'm connected. Although I was raised polygamous, it wasn't until I was 17 that I decided without a doubt that I was going to accept the principle of plural marriage. It took me a while to come to this decision. I reflected and prayed and turned inward until I had my answer. Eventually, I developed a strong testimony about the way I wanted to live my life. The biggest influence on my decision to live the principle of plural marriage was my grandmother. She loved having sister wives and knew that the strongest relationship in her marriage was with them. When I decided that I was going to enter into a plural marriage, I knew that it would be only as a third wife. Even as a teenager, I was certain that this was the path for me. I understand how many people think this is a strange preference. Why would I want to come third when I could come first? But when you think about it, if you are as committed to the plural marriage from a young age as I was, you're less interested in the monogamous stage of the relationship than in the plural stage. I wanted sister wives as much as I wanted a husband. It's a common misconception, at least in my worldview, that it's best to enter a family as a first wife. People often think incorrectly that the first wife has the highest status and the most security. I never saw it this way. In fact, in my opinion, being the first wife takes too much work and involves too much self-sacrifice. You have to give up your life entirely and be joined at the hip to your husband. It's just you and your husband until the day he marries a second wife. This kind of single-minded devotion never appealed to me. I'm independent and I like my freedom. Being the second wife didn't seem like a better option either. In fact, I think that would have been worse than being the first wife. The second wife has the hardest job and is put in the most uncomfortable position because she's the one who comes along and disrupts the marriage of the first wife and her husband. You can't blame her. It's not the second wife's fault. It's just the nature of her role. She's the wedge that comes between the couple, and I was never going to put myself in that position. No matter how fair and understanding a first wife is, there's no way to avoid the emotional struggles and heartache when a second wife joins the family. But the third wife, she's the lucky one. She's the one who comes along and makes peace between the first 2 wives. The third wife is in a blessed position. She doesn't have to face marriage on her own without the help from sister wives or bear the burden of breaking up a previously monogamous couple. I was going to be a third wife all the way. Around my 19th birthday, my sister Wendy went on a survival trek with our church. The leaders of her group were a newlywed couple, Mary and Cody Brown. When Wendy returned from her adventure, all she could talk about was Cody. Cody, Cody, Cody. She was full of stories about how strong and athletic Cody was. Cody pulled us all up a hill, she said. He threw us over a wall one by one. Wendy explained that Cody and Mary were new to our group, which is why I'd never heard of them before. As it turned out, Mary had been a member for years. She'd even been over to my house on several occasions, but no one had noticed her until she married Cody. The next day, I went to church with Wendy. The hall was crowded. I was checking out the crowd when my eyes landed on a handsome young man. Without my sister telling me, I knew he was Cody. I thought, wow, Wendy forgot to mention how cute Cody is. He's really, really cute. Now it's from the point of view of Cody. I have to admit that I don't remember seeing Christine in church that morning. I had been in the church for only 6 months, so the group was fairly new to me. There were different faces at church each week, which made it difficult for me to remember everyone I met. A week after I returned from the survival trek, our church held a dance. Of course, I attended with my new wife, Mary. Although I'd met Janelle once or twice, we were only casual acquaintances at this point. But there was one girl who caught my eye, Christine. She was wearing a turquoise dress with a lace ruffle at the collar. She was bubbly and sweet and as cute as anyone I'd ever seen before. Really? I was never attracted to her. Right. She was also overflowing with positivity. Her liveliness and good cheer were infectious. However, I was still a newlywed and new to the polygamous faith, although I thought Christine was really cute. I wasn't yet ready to consider a second wife. I didn't know this, but Christine had a crush on another boy that night. She was just 19 and she was a romantic. But there was an undeniable spark between us. When I looked at her, I had a feeling, called a sixth sense, that our destinies were interlaced. Mary and I didn't have any newlywed friends, and since we didn't have any children and Mary wasn't pregnant, we spent most of our time with single people our age. We always had a group at our house eating ice cream and hanging out. Christine had a big circle of friends, and she always seemed to be in our midst. And since Christine's family was so involved in our church, they regularly hosted gatherings to which Mary and I were usually invited. While I had an inkling that perhaps something important was starting to develop with Christine, I was awed with how adorable and upbeat she was. Mary and I weren't yet looking to add to our family. We were newlyweds and still very much a couple in love. This made it difficult for me to hang out with my buddies because it would mean leaving her alone. Eventually, Christine and Mary became friends, which was great, but when I started to notice that Christine was growing interested in me, and when I started visualizing a future together, I knew that exploring this would be unfair to Mary at this point. If Christine and I started hanging out alone, in essence, if we were to start courting, Mary would be abandoned by two of her closest friends. Mary had inadvertently made it clear to me on several occasions that she wasn't prepared to court Christine. One weekend at a field day for the younger members of our faith, I was busy being my loud, boisterous self. I was running all over the field we were gathered at, hosing people down with water. Everybody was chasing me in order to pay me back, but they couldn't catch me. In the middle of all this, I heard Christine cry out, "Cody, my masculine man." I looked over at Mary, and I could almost hear her growling. I hadn't seen many examples of plural marriage since I was new to the faith, so this was the first time I experienced it up close. But I couldn't blame her. We were very young. Despite our initial resistance, something was pulling us together. I couldn't deny that Christine would be a part of my family someday, but we all needed to grow up first. Go to part 2.